Howdy, one and all, and welcome to Random SEC, your home for the best SEC and college sports content around. We tell it like it is. Today, we're going to be breaking down the Heisman candidates. They were announced yesterday afternoon. The four candidates that will be in New York this weekend, two in the playoffs, two sitting out, and it's definitely one of our less star-studded Heisman candidates. Heisman finalists. Let's be honest here. But it's a really interesting one, and I really like it. So let's just go ahead and get into this. The four candidates are Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. He's had a fantastic year. Um, Starting quarterback for the Indiana Hoosiers. He transferred in from Cal, and him and his brother transferred in from Cal, and he has just been absolutely insane. Posing great stats, 2,000 nearing 3,000 yards on the season, 33 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. He's a good rusher, 240 yards rushing this season, and 6 rushing touchdowns. And we saw him last weekend in the Big Ten championship game. Look like an absolute baller. Go through injury, get back up, and we saw his great interview. That was quite funny. But yeah, Fernando Mendoza has been nothing short of the reason that part of the reason that Indiana has made the spectacular run that they have this year. They are currently 13-0 heading into the college football playoffs and are the #1 seed, which is unprecedented in this era of college football and any era of college football. Indiana really has never been there, and Fernando Mendoza is a big part in why they are there now, along with his head coach Kurt Signetti. The second candidate is Jeremyiah Love out of Notre Dame, the star-studded running back, number 4. This guy's been, close to winning a Heisman 2 years in a row now. I don't believe he was a finalist last year, but he was pretty darn close. He has been just an absolute X factor for the Irish. They have a great running back room. Him and Jadarian Price is hard to tackle. He finds himself sitting at home this playoff run, though. A little controversial topic that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will not make the college football playoffs, and they declined their bowl, so we will not get to see him play again. It doesn't matter for the Heisman, although the votes are already in as of today. Love has been, kind of the staple of Notre Dame these past couple of years. When you think of the Marcus Freeman era at Notre Dame so far, you think of Jeremyiah Love. He's the guy who's gotten it going, and he has a lot of Heisman moments. I'd say he has the most Heisman moments out of any of these candidates. That pit run comes to mind when he absolutely just was supposed to be down and then just gets up and runs 60 yards, and many more. And he's honestly one of the best running backs we've seen in a while. He's a little bit underrated, I think. We don't give him enough love. But 199 carries on the year, 1,372 yards, and 18 rushing touchdowns. Not stellar, elite. They're elite, but like not college football changing numbers. Like we've seen these before. But I think it's about more than that. I think it's just the impact he has on his team, and just the leadership. And he's been in this situation 2 years in a row. I'd say he's one of my favorites for sure. Moving on though, Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt Commodores quarterback, and I believe he may be the first Vanderbilt Heisman finalist ever. You got to fact check on me on that, but he's at least the first Vanderbilt Heisman candidate in the modern era of football. I know that for sure. Diego Pavia has been nothing short of spectacular, leading the Vanderbilt Commodores to their first 10-win season in who knows how long. It's a rarity for the Commodores to be this good, and I think a big part of that is Diego Pavia. Now, I'm getting to him a little bit in a second more when we talk about who I think should win it, and who I think is the best candidate here. But Diego Pavia has been nothing short of incredible. He's a sixth-year senior, and he's been just insane in every aspect of the game. A kid from New Mexico State transferred in to Clark Lea's squad, and he's been the staple of the Clark Lee era at Vanderbilt. Has a lot of staple wins throughout his career at Vanderbilt, and has had a terrific season. Approximately a little over 3,000 yards on the season, 27 touchdowns, with a solid completion percentage. It's about 71%. That's about as good as it gets in college football this year. Diego Pavia has had his fair share of Heisman moments as well. Um, and it's hard to look at other candidates and not put him in here. A lot of people didn't want to see him even in the Heisman finalists. And I completely disagree with that. I think Diego Pavia has been an absolute baller, and he 100% deserves this. Whether you like the way he presents himself, the way he talks. He's a little Johnny Manziel-esque. That's up to you. But the way Diego Pavia has been this season is nothing short of incredible. Now let's go ahead and go to the final Heisman finalists, and that is quarterback of Ohio State, Julian Sayin. Now, Ohio State has been the number one team for most of the year, and he has been the leader of that. Freshman quarterback, and his first full season of starting at quarterback. He's a sophomore, my bad, but it is his first season at starting at quarterback, and he's been just absolutely incredible. Let's not cut it short. He's got some absolute weapons at receiver, and he's taken advantage of them. 3,300 yards with 31 touchdowns on the season. Sayin achieved a rare feat this year too, and I want to bring this up. He became the second quarterback in the last 30 years to record 3 games in a season with at least 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an 80% completion percentage. That is ridiculous. Like I don't know how much y'all know about quarterback statistics. That's a ridiculous statistic. Julian Sayin's a great quarterback, and he's going to be with the Buckeyes next year. Him and Jeremiah Smith are going to run it back next year, both sophomores. So, Ohio State looks like they're here to stay, and they still got the playoffs to look forward to. They are number 2. Look, that being said, Julian Sayin's a great quarterback. I feel like they may end up giving it to him, but he'd be lower down on my list, maybe at 4 for me, if I was a Heisman selector. Which brings us to let's just look at this. Let me talk about who I think should win it, and let me talk about who I think will win it. Look, I've been a huge Diego Pavia fan all season. I get people don't like the way he presents himself, the swagger he presents himself with. It's a little cocky. Okay, I agree with that. And I'm not a big Johnny Manziel fan either, but just the way this guy has taken a program like Vanderbilt and made them a national contender. I mean, dang, they were on the verge of a playoff this year. Some might say they were even screwed out of the playoffs this year. I just don't look. And here's the thing I like to say: if you take Diego Pavia off this Vanderbilt team, this 10-2 Vanderbilt team, how many games do you think they're winning? 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. He's the heart and soul of this team. I don't want to say he carries this team, but he is a major factor in why they're good, why they're even competitive. And a lot of that has to do with the coaching, but the guy is a baller, and he the reason maybe he even has mistakes is because he has to make those decisions that not a lot of people would. He has a lot of confidence. The guy has a lot of confidence. He makes decisions that not a lot of people would, and they paid off more often than not for Vanderbilt. And look, that statement at the end of the year went into Neyland Stadium, Tennessee, one of the best atmospheres in college football, against their heated rival, and absolutely wiped the floor with them. That's a Heisman moment. That's the epitome of a Heisman moment. And the guy just continues to ball. Look, I don't think they'll give it to him. But as far as most valuable player for his team, Diego Pavia is the most valuable player in the country. He just is. I mean, look, you take Jeremyiah Love off Notre Dame, they probably lose one more game, maybe. You take Julian Sayin off the Ohio State, put a decent quarterback in there. I think they're going the same. Same with Fernando Mendoza. Now, Fernando Mendoza is a little more valuable to his team. He obviously brought them over the hump that they weren't last year. But still, I still think Indiana's comfortably in the playoffs without Fernando Mendoza. Now, this isn't a knock to any of 3 of these guys. I'm just saying, as far as the most valuable player goes, Diego Pavia is that guy. And look, I don't really know what the full Heisman criteria is. It's kind of like the college football playoff in that sense. They don't really give you what the Heisman criteria is. It's a little different than the college football playoff because it's supposed to change year to year a little bit. But we just don't know. Because I've disagreed with a lot of Heisman picks in the past, in the recent years, and really just, I mean, there hasn't been a lot that I haven't, you know, that I have agreed with. Now that I think about it, I didn't agree with last year's, but I get where they went with Travis Hunter being last year's. Anyways, off topic. Diego Pavi's that guy. He's the most valuable player in college football. Now he's not going to be the most talented. Look, if I had to bet you, I would say Fernando Mendoza and definitely Julian Sayin are going to have better NFL careers. But that's just simply not what the award is. It's for the best college football player this year, the most valuable college football player this year. And I feel like we've strayed away from that in that criteria. I feel like it's really just become the most talented player because, come on, in that Caleb Williams year, I really don't think he was the best player in college football. I really don't. And so maybe they'll get back to that this year. And then I'd say my second pick would be Jeremyiah Love. Now they've shown throughout history that they hate giving it to running backs. In recent history, ever since Darren McFadden got snubbed, in 06 and 07, they've shown that they don't want to give it to running backs. It should have been Ashton Jeanty last year. They didn't do that. So a running back's going to have to go above and beyond to win it. And while Jeremiah is great, and while you have a pretty good argument for why he should win it, maybe even a better argument than Pavia, I just simply don't think they're going to give it to a running back, especially to Notre Dame, after, the theatrics that Notre Dame and ESPN have had. I think that factors in a little bit with it, which is stupid. It's about the player, but I don't think they're going to give it to Jeremiah Love. And then Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza, I'd say these are your two favorites. Obviously they're at my third and fourth for the list. I'd say Mendoza's a little higher than Sayin though. Just simply on value to their team. But look, Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza are great players. Okay, let's not take that away from them. But if you watch that Big Ten championship game, you saw that those guys aren't the staple of the team. For Ohio State, you got I think 3 or 4 guys that are more of a value to their team than Julian Sayin, and that's no knock to him. He's a great player. And kind of the same thing with Fernando Mendoza. I do really like both these guys. I really like all 4 of these guys. I think they're pretty great guys, and it's going to be a fun, Heisman race this year. It's been a fun one, and it's going to be very interesting to see on Saturday who comes out with the golden trophy there in front of all the former Heisman finalists. It's one of the coolest awards in all of sports, in all of the world, to be honest. It's really so unique, and as much as I think people have gotten screwed, as much as I think that it's not chosen the best, it's still a college football staple. Without it, it's just not college football. So I'm very interested to see who wins it. I hope it's Diego Pavia. I think he would be the best candidate, but we shall see. Well, that's the end of the video, guys. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you follow us on all socials: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. It would really help us out. We really appreciate it. This is Random SEC. Thank you.